one. So we've had a couple folks ask us what our recommendations for a truck would be, and I thought it would be a really good video to do and talk about, and really just share the stuff that I've found online and share my experience of what I've been researching throughout the years that we've been researching trucks. And I will tell you, most of the information that I'm going to talk about that I've learned it through reading on Expeditors Online. In the forum section, there's a truck talk. There's a specific forum where it's all people ask questions about trucks, people asking about wheelbases and engines and trucks and all that, you know. So over the years I've been reading through there, and I've kind of learned just a little bit, you know. I'm no pro, but I want to share with you, everybody, you know, what I've learned from all the reading I've done. To start, I'm going to tell you guys about the history of the diesel engine. Through the years, the EPA has mandated wanting improvements out of the diesel engine. Before 1998, most diesel engines were known as mechanicals. And the reason they're known as mechanical engines is because of I believe it's because of the fuel pumps. The fuel pumps were basically a mechanical pump that pumped your fuel into the diesel. Now, those were rock solid engines. I mean, hardly anything ever went wrong with those things. You could run those things like a dog and they would just keep running, you know. But in 1998, the EPA wanted improvements to the diesel engine. And that's when a lot of the manufacturers, like I think Detroit was the pioneer in most of it, but Detroit, Cummins, and then Caterpillar, they came out with the electronic fuel injection. And that was probably the best years for diesel engines. 1998 through 2003, 2004. That's when they had electronic fuel injection, where they can control the fuel flow to each cylinder, and you know, it really improved the diesel engine because it improved the fuel mileage of the diesel engines. 2004, late 2003, 2004 is when another mandate came out by the EPA. That's when they started adding what's called EGRs to trucks. Now, what an EGR is, and what it stands for, is exhaust gas recirculation. And basically what those things are doing is taking any unburnt fuel out of the exhaust, recirculating it back into the engine, and reburning it again. From what I've read, this was a really bad thing to do to the diesel engines. I read an article about the person who invented the EGR, and he said in that article he had stated that the EGR was the worst thing they could do to the diesel engine. My understanding of it, and what I've learned through the years, is a diesel engine is basically a large air pump. You're pulling cool air in and pushing the hot air out. So the EGR, what that was doing is taking that hot air that was being pushed out, recirculated back into the engine. So they're recirculating hot gases back into the engine, which it's not good for the engine. It's not beneficial. There's just been problems through the years since the EGR was implemented. Then in 2007, another EPA mandate. That's when they started putting filters on the exhaust systems. I read a lot of bad issues with that. Basically, you're restricting those hot gases exiting the engine, so you're basically backing the engine up. You're not allowing that air to flow out smoothly, you know. That filter was plugging up, and of course all the soot and everything was building up in these filters. And sure, yeah, they might have been good to reduce emissions, but they caused a lot of problems for truck drivers, truck owners, and you know, it just created a lot of problems. In 2010, they did some updates to it. I don't remember if that was another EPA mandate, but that's when they started using diesel exhaust fluid. also known as DEF. That did improve the filter system a lot. It cleans it out better. Before, what I understood was they were using a 7th fuel injector and spraying fuel on this filter to clean it out. Now they're using the DEF fluid, which works a lot better. There's been a lot less problems with it. I believe they're coming out with another mandate here soon, 2017. I haven't read a lot about that yet, but I don't think it's as drastic as the EGR, the filter, the exhaust fluid. I just think it has to do a lot with reducing friction. It created a new oil to work with these newer engines to reduce friction, increase fuel mileage. So this mandate might be better, but time will tell. Now in 2004, when the EGR was implemented, Detroit, Mercedes, and Cummins all went the EGR route. That's what they've all put on their engines. Now Caterpillar, they did something completely different, and what their emissions thing is called, it was an ACER. I don't quite understand the difference on it, but I do know that it was actually less problematic than the EGR. But it came with its own problems. Some of those problems were reduced power. They weren't as powerful as most people have come to know Caterpillar to be. You know, if you research Caterpillar engines, they're known for their horsepower, their torque. They're just workhorses when it comes to getting up those hills and, you know, just really performing well. And that ACER, it required them to add a second turbo. And even with a second turbo, it just completely lacked a lot of power. Now, I know there's a lot of third-party people that have done some improvements to that system, but that's kind of outside the box. You're going to have to spend quite a bit of money to upgrade, improve, computer reprogramming, all kinds of different stuff to really get that ACER engine running really well. One thing I don't recommend to anybody, and this is what I've learned through my research, is if you're looking to buy a used truck, stay away from anything built 2007 to 2010. And basically that engine is the exhaust filter without DEF. Those were the most problematic trucks out of all of them. So that's a little history about the engines. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about trucks. I have always been a huge fan of Peterbilt and Kenworths. They're just rock solid built trucks. But after 2007, Cummins just took a dive. They became really problematic. That's typically what you get in a Kenworth or Peterbilt, is a Cummins or a PACCAR. PACCAR is basically a different, little bit tweaked design Cummins from what I've read. There's not much difference to them. Now I'm gonna tell you about trucks. Which ones I would pick, which ones I would stay away from. So if you're looking to buy a used truck, my number one favorite pick would be anything built before 2007, Kenworth or a Peterbilt. In those trucks, for engines, I would pick the Cummins. Now, I might be a little bit biased because our first truck was a Kenworth with the Cummins engine with the Allison transmission. Now, that truck was just rock solid. Never left us on the side of the road. Always got us to the shop if we needed. That little 8.3 liter Cummins engine, it was just a rock solid engine. Yeah, I mean, it kept running and running, you know. I think it had over 1 million miles and it never been rebuilt. And those engines are usually only meant to go about 500 or 750,000 miles. and this thing was just still going. So, you know, you maintain your truck, you're going to get some miles out of it. Before 2007, the ones I would stay away from, the biggest one is international. I wouldn't even consider an international truck. And reason being is in 2003, when the EGR was implemented, they redesigned their truck and it came with a lot of problems. A lot of electrical problems. And if you know trucking or trucks, electrical problems can be some of the worst, expensive, problematic problems to resolve, to fix, to find the problem, to resolve it. Electrical is just so hard to trace down. So being that was one of their biggest problems that they had, it just completely turned me off for anything of those trucks. International is just no go. Now, Freightliners, anything before 2003, they usually used either a Cummins or a Caterpillar. But when the EGR was implemented in 2004, Freightliner went to the Mercedes-Benz Diesel. Now, that was a really good diesel engine, but really expensive to get parts for, to get parts ordered. I read mixed reviews on this. I've read some people say that those engines can't be rebuilt. But then I've read other people say they can. They're just more expensive. My understanding, when you have a Mercedes engine go out on you, you basically have to pull the engine and put a rebuilt one back in there. They were pretty good engines. I mean, they weren't, you know, the best. I would still pick a Cummins over that Mercedes. But the fact that the parts were so expensive and hard to get, probably another truck you just don't want to mess with, especially if you're just starting out in this business. You know, you don't want a problematic truck or something really expensive to get worked on. Like I've said, stay away from 07 to 2010. Let's talk today. If I was to buy a new truck today, my number one pick, I think, is a Cascadia with the Detroit Diesel. Now, I've never been a real big fan of Freightliners. I've always been a big fan of Peterbilt and Kenworths, but the reason I picked the Cascadia is because it comes with the Detroit Diesel, and the Detroit Diesel has so far proven to be the least problematic out of all the engines that are out there right now. Now, they still come with their problems. Freightliner has gotten really good at being able to determine what the problem is, changing the part, and you're getting back on the road. Whereas I've read a lot of the Cummins and PACCAR that they'll just start throwing parts out. Oh, it's got to be the EGR cooler. They'll throw an EGR cooler on it. It wasn't the EGR cooler. You're still having the same problem. You'll have to take it back into the shop. Oh, maybe it's the fan clutch. They'll throw a fan clutch on. That wasn't the problem. They just throw parts at it. You know, they don't know what's exactly wrong with it. They just throw parts at it until they either find it or you give up and get rid of the truck. So the Detroit Diesel is definitely my biggest number one pick for a new truck. That Cascadia is an expensive truck though. So my second pick, other than the Cascadia, would be the truck we're driving now, and that's the Freightliner M2 112. It's almost identical to the Cascadia, except for the wiring, the dash, the cab, you know, all that's different. But as far as engine, transmission, brakes, axles, suspension, you know, basically all the inside of the truck is basically a Cascadia, you know, just a cheaper built Cascadia. They use cheaper parts. The dashes are more plastic, and you know, it's just not as well built as the Cascadia, but still a rock solid truck if you take care of it. Now, I wanted to share one more option with you that most people don't know about, and I think this would be my number one pick if it was feasible to do in Expediting. But my number one pick would be what's called a glider truck. or a glider kit. They use different kind of names for it, but they always implement that glider name in it. And what a glider truck is you buy a brand new truck. Everything's all brand new, dash, windows, cab, sleeper, everything's brand new. And what they do is they take a rebuilt engine, a rebuilt transmission, and a rebuilt rear differential. And they put all those parts on a brand new truck. Now, when I say rebuilt, it's completely rebuilt. It looks like a brand new engine. It's been painted. It's been, reconditioned to be just like new. The transmission, engine, and the rear differential. Now, the engines that most people are putting in these new trucks like that is those electronic fuel injection engines, which were engines between 1998 to 2003. Those were the best, hands down, diesel engines. Got the best fuel mileage, least problematic. They would run no matter what. Easy to diagnose with problems. They were really good engines. So what people are doing is getting those engines, getting them refurbished to brand new, almost brand new again, and putting them in brand new trucks. Now, the problem with those is, of course, it doesn't meet the EPA standards. You can't go to California in this truck because it doesn't have an exhaust filter or the DEF fluid. So no California runs in those trucks. And I've read a lot of talk about them trying to enforce rules on those, making them no longer available. Is that going to happen? We don't know yet. I can see some lawmaker trying to stop people from buying glider trucks. But those would be the best option, really, if you don't plan to run California. You can get those in a Class 7. Harrisburg Freightliner in Iowa, they're doing a Freightliner M2 glider. So that's an option if you wanted to go that route. They're also doing Cascadia gliders. So I really like that idea just because I know those were the best engines for an owner-operator to own. Cheapest to work on, cheapest to diagnose, cheapest to repair. I really love those ideas. But the EPA stuff really kind of scares me from those. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. They might come out with the law requiring those trucks to be retrofitted with a filter, and then you're back to square one. You got a truck with a DPF filter on it, which is problematic. I have read that they're coming out with better DPF filters that aren't as problematic, but that's we're kind of digressing there. But I just wanted to throw that option out there. If you guys are looking to buy a used truck, a new truck, don't just take my word on the stuff. I just wanted to share with you what I've learned through the years about the diesel engines, trucks. If you really want to do some research, I highly recommend going on the Expeditors online forum, go to the Truck Talk section, read every single thread throughout there. There's lots of good information and recommendations and knowledge in there. And another place I recommend is Kevin Rutherford show on Sirius Satellite Radio. They do an episode show, it's about an hour long, that's called the Power Hour, talking about nothing but just trucks. You can learn a lot. People call in, you can call in, ask questions. You can listen to other people's questions about problems they're having with trucks. They're very knowledgeable about the diesel engine. That's my research I've come up with. I wanted to share it with you guys. Check out Kevin Rutherford's show. Check out Expeditors online. I hope you guys liked the video. If you guys have any other tips, leave them down in the comments. As always, thanks for watching and subscribing. We'll see you in our next video. Peace, love, and expediting.